Good Shabbos, everyone. A few weeks ago, I attended a 3-day rabbinic conference entitled Zionism, A New Conversation. The conference was designed to provide a fresh opportunity for a wide range of rabbis to learn what we could do to help Israel during this difficult time. The conference brought together 100 rabbis from congregations and Jewish organizations from across the United States, Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, even some ultra-Orthodox rabbis, all sorts of rabbis. And it was one of the best rabbinic conferences I've ever attended. It was great to learn from colleagues across the spectrum. And I got to learn from a wide range of Jewish and non-Jewish leaders. Session topics included re-engaging youth on Israel, strengthening relationships and creating new allies, understanding why Israel is so maligned on social media, and answering the hard questions about Israeli history and Zionism. Speakers included educators, presidents of major Jewish organizations, and leaders from the Black and Latino communities. The event featured presentations on the one end by conservative opinion columnist Bret Stephens, and on the other end of the spectrum, Representative Richie Torres from New York, a very pro-Israel, progressive Democratic member of Congress. But the program that left the most enduring impact on me, before I tell you who that is, I want to share a story, something that happened to me at that conference. As I was leaving my room, heading down to the conference, like all the other rabbis there, I had a name tag that identified me as a rabbi. And I got on an elevator, and I happened to walk in on an elevator with a family that was just staying at this resort that had nothing to do with the conference. And as I walked in the elevator and was with this large family, they saw my name tag identifying me as Rabbi Strauss from Houston, Texas. They all began to look at each other. And I expected the worst. Who knows what they were going to say? Perhaps they were going to say something awful about Jews or Israel, or who knows what could happen. But then something that I wasn't prepared for happened. The grandfather of the group looked at me and he said, "Rabbi, I fought in World War II against evil. I can relate to what your people are going through today. As devout Christians, Rabbi, please know that we are praying for you." I thanked him, and we even embraced. And it's amazing how life works sometimes. Because as I walked from that elevator to the conference room, those thoughts were immediately reinforced when I got to learn from Reverend Johnny Moore. I've heard of Reverend Moore before, perhaps you have, but I've never had a chance to meet him. Reverend Moore is one of America's most influential evangelical Christian leaders today. Especially known for his multi-faith work, he's an author, gifted speaker, and the current president of the prestigious Congress of Christian Leaders. His keynote address to that large group of rabbis was titled, "Understanding Christian Zionists." Now, before October 7th, I never thought I would see something like this. A prominent evangelical Christian leader speaking to a diverse group of rabbis. It would be deemed controversial at best. In similar events in the past, I've even seen some rabbis on the left or even the right walk out, protest, but not after October 7th. Everyone, from rabbis on the far left to the far right, did not complain. So Reverend Moore was not put on the defensive. Instead, he was straightforward with the message that I want to share with you today, because it's a message that will forever stay with me. He started asking that large group of rabbis, why do we evangelical Christians love Jews in the state of Israel so much? He then admitted, some argue that their love is because Israel has to be controlled by Jews in order for their Messiah, in order for Jesus to return. No, he said, that's not true at all. Rather, it's an inaccurate interpretation of some biblical text. A myth, he said, used to discount their genuine affection and concern for the Jewish people. Rather, he told us there are 4 reasons why they're fully committed to our people and Medinat Yisrael. 1, our Bible, he said, is also their Bible. Our heroes are also their heroes. Many of our values are also their values, and they actually feel commanded to bless the Jewish people. He then elaborated. First, he said, his community shares some of our beliefs, many of them, that God can still play a part in this world. The belief in divine order and that all people are made B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God. He talked about the history of America as a true Judeo-Christian story, agreeing with America's founding fathers that the fulfillment of American ideals regarding tolerance, freedom, individual responsibility, and the pursuit of happiness rested on the full equality of Jews as a central feature of our national exceptionalism. He quoted George Washington in his famous welcome to America's first synagogue back in 1790, to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. And he spoke of how American Christians have often respected and even revered their Jewish origins, unlike too many Christians in Europe. Agreeing with what John Adams said back in 1809, the Hebrews have done more to civilize men than any other nation. And he went on to quote words from our Torah, from Genesis 12, the first book of what he would call the Old Testament, quoting God's words to Abraham, the father of the Jewish people. I will bless those who bless you and curse the one who curses you, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. He then declared to a loud round of applause, Genesis 12 still holds. As a Christian and as a reverend, he told us he must do all he can to bring blessings to the Jewish people, telling us that if he does nothing to help us, he considers himself sinning. Therefore, he said, he now asks himself every day as anti-Semitism increases, what am I doing to support my Jewish brothers and sisters in America and in Israel? And so he told us that he's speaking up more than ever before, and that he pledged to that large group of rabbis, as your enemies call for rage and hate, he and his people will call for more love, more prayers, and more support. That he will stand up for us like never before, not just because he said he believed it's the right thing to do. Rather, he believes, in addition, that this is what God commands him to do. And no matter what anyone says, to stand faithfully by the side of Israel. And he takes this command from Genesis 12 very seriously. He then elaborated more about the current situation. With conviction equal to the best of rabbis and Jewish leaders, he declared what we all know. Hamas, Iran, and other terrorist proxies, they don't want a two-state solution. They want another final solution. But he promised to us that would never happen. Because unlike 1939, he told us, you Jews are no longer alone. Rather, today, there are over 600 million like-minded evangelical Christians in this world who will always stand with the Jewish people. So this time, we are not alone. He then said something that I will never forget. He told us it doesn't really matter if we Jews agree with the evangelical Christians on social issues. He admitted there are many disagreements we may have. But he told us that even if we have those disagreements, even if some Jews will never come around to embrace us, none of that matters. Because no matter what, he declared, he and his people will always stand with the Jewish people. But he did have one request, his ask of our community, to trust them, to trust evangelical Christians and their love for us in the state of Israel. That they're not in it to convert us, to serve their needs, that they're on our side because they believe in us and in our right to flourish in safety and freedom in the United States and in Israel. Their love is genuine. And not only to trust them, but to teach them. He begged us to discuss the issues that we may have with some of their views on social or even political issues. Here just to learn from each other so we can grow together, to engage with them, because they do want to engage with us. My friends, his talk reminded me of an amazing opportunity I had several years ago to travel to Israel with one of Reverend Moore's colleagues, Pastor John Hagee. I went with Pastor Hagee to Israel on one of his legendary missions. And as many of you may know, Pastor Hagee is also one of the leading pro-Israel evangelical Christian leaders in the United States, based in San Antonio. And his trips to Israel are no ordinary missions. He brings literally hundreds of people, dozens of buses, almost every single year on his trips, and something he's done countless times over the last several decades. And as part of that mission to Israel, I went to Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Museum, with his son, Matthew Hagee. Matthew will one day take over for his father, and he's also an incredibly gifted speaker who has a great passion for Israel. And that day, as we toured Yad Vashem, tears poured down not just from my face, but from Pastor Matthew Hagee's face. And throughout that day together, he apologized to me many times for what Christians did to our people during the Holocaust. And he pledged to me to never let it happen again. I told him that day that if there had only been more pastors like him and his father in Europe in the 1930s and 40s, perhaps the Holocaust would not have happened, and my great-grandparents and so many others would not have been murdered. Yes, thank God I believe that today there are many like Pastor Hagee and Reverend Moore in the United States, and truly throughout South America, Asia, and even in Europe. And I know my friends, Dr. Roger Patterson of West University Baptist Church and Pastor Becky Keenan of Gulf Meadows Church will watch this sermon, as I spoke to both of them this week. And I often feel their prayers for our community. We have many other friends like them in our Houston community. And I learned a long time ago from Rabbi Rosen and Rabbi Siegel, Zichrono Livracha, welcome all people that love Israel. Don't judge them. Don't doubt them. Don't focus on our differences. Rather, appreciate, accept, and embrace their love. In our Torah portion today, Aaron is silent, does nothing, after learning that his two sons have died. Let us not be silent. Instead, let us actively work to deepen this all-important friendship. Because we have learned a lot since October 7th. A lot. And more than ever, we know now who our true friends are and who are our real enemies. Progressives and isolationists, extreme left-wing academics and right-wing nationalists have not only spoken out against Israel, they've openly embraced anti-Semitism. But our true friends, like Christian evangelicals, have stood beside us in this moment of critical need. They have offered unequivocal support. In our personal lives, we have friends we may not see eye to eye with on everything. But don't we appreciate those differences? Learn and grow from where we may disagree? And don't we judge our true friendships on those who stick with us in those times of need? I believe it's never been more important to fully engage with our evangelical friends, to deepen our common bonds, and to strengthen this all-important relationship like never before. Back at that conference, Reverend Johnny Moore ended his talk with words of comfort and strength, words that I will end my talk with today. He told the group of rabbis, quoting from the second book of Kings, chapter 6, Al tira, ki rabim asher itanu, me'asher otam. Have no fear. There are more on your side than on the side of your enemies. There are more on your side than on the side of your enemies. Thank God, Reverend Moore and millions like him are truly on our side. Shabbat Shalom. And we're now ready to enter the last part of our service today, the Musaf section.